It's the 27th day. The 27th day already of January. My goodness. I'm going to be a host tonight. I'm Dana. I hope you're doing well. Just in a lie, a polished mask for what's so right. The future's here, they say it's bright, but hidden deep, it's not so light. It takes a minute. They say it's bright. They say it's bright. Say it's bright. Pink hydrogen wrapped up need. Nuclear escape disguised as clean. Painted bright for all to see. A scheme that leaves us lost as a ball and tall weeds. Pink hydrogen, that's the
They sell us dreams, they paint it bold, but what's hidden there is cold. A polished face, a crafted guise, pink hydrogen, their perfect lie.
His music is incredible. Anti-nuclear music is pretty impressive that somebody can do that in such a short period of time. And which means he's just getting started, right? We are looking forward to it. And you should too if you're smart. Download his music and put it on your kids' phones. And they'll throw away anything that doesn't like, but there's a lot of it they're going to love, I can guarantee you. And you can start off in my playlist for some of the songs. You'll see anti-nuclear music. Fukushima. I'm going to put you on the big screen. Actually, I'm Danny. You can call into these live shows. I don't hide from anybody. Never have, never will. I have no fear whatsoever of the nuclear industry. Outside is going to exterminate the entire planet. But as for the people, these are cowards. You needn't worry about them. They're cowards. The Geiger counter up in your top right hand side is live. Fukushima. So most people, when you think of Fukushima, that's it. There's a tsunami, if that at all, right? And it's just, it was riveting, to say the least. There was something pretty bizarre going on in the background of all of this. And I mean, this is insane stuff. Look at this. Communities and thousands of people's washed away. And the debris field in the middle of the Pacific from the tsunami was around the size of Texas, 2,000 square miles. So it's kind of it's an overwhelming distance, right? Try driving 2,000 miles or, because you can visually see something like that. But the tsunami also hit some nuclear power plants. And these are not very big facilities. Most people can't appreciate that this would be an issue so far away. Because when you look at this, it doesn't really, it's not impressive. It doesn't seem that should be an issue, should it? To your children or your communities or your planet or birds or insects or whales. There's nothing safe from the radioactive fallout. And that's what makes the story so insidious. Reactor 1 had detonated. This is a significant detonation. Lost decades of reactor cores at the fuel pools at the top of the buildings. They successfully covered it up. They mostly fed your reactor 2, which, by the way, burnt constantly for days and appears to went China syndrome deep into the earth and had cracked the earth open, we know, in 6 places close by. And that the steam coming out of the cracks in the earth were at 10 sieverts per hour. This was stationary Geiger counters that were considered reliable. The problem was they maxed out at 10 sieverts. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose for a human. It was reactor 3. Reactor 3 detonated. It ejected the reactor core and the fuel pool right into the buildings. But again, in comparison of a tsunami and the devastation, the average person has no way of comprehending it. So you had reactor 1 detonate, Reactor 2 actually burnt when China syndrome. Reactor 3 ejected the reactor core to fuel pools right out of the buildings. And Reactor 4. So Reactor 4 was extraordinary. What they done was they leveled it almost down to the ground. This was supposed to be a 190-foot building. The top of the building is right here. Not up there, but right here. But there is no building left there. And so they built this contraption off-site and eventually installed it. And this is cantilevered over the stump of Reactor 4, the remains of Reactor 4, the debris of Reactor 4. And this was a public relations stunt to convince people that it was actually normal at the very top of the building. This is what it should look like at the top of the buildings. And they put this cantilever that doesn't physically touch it because the building is too... it was only put there, and they were starting to put the panels in. That's a single panel, and they just laid that in there with the cranes, with remote-controlled cranes and gravity. And anybody stood up in a paper suit as a very well-disciplined slave or homeless person. These are not academics. These are not scientists. These are not journalists. You couldn't drag them there. They would claw the eyes out of your head before you can get them that close to a Medusa. That's what it looked like before they put the cantilever and the structure over it. It was gutted right to the ground. But officially, the world medias, and the big ones at that, and many, many besides what you're seeing here, have come out with the assertions and videos suggesting or claiming that they're at the top 190-foot building, 19-story building, 65-meter tall building, which is 15 stories wide, 150 feet wide. It's very, very difficult to appreciate the enormity of the buildings in these pictures. And so they hoodwinked the entire planet, and officially, of August 24, 2023, not last year, but the year before, the International Atomic Energy came out and claimed that the buildings are not melted down, that they didn't blow up, that they didn't lose their inventories, that everything was nice and hokey and safe. And so if you've never been here before, you've never seen this stuff, I want you to really just, the next couple of minutes, we'll tell you the story of something you can't see or smell or hear or feel or touch or taste or pick up or throw rocks at it or perceive. It's invisible. Like an invisible snowstorm that never stops snowing, it never melts, and instead it's radiation that pulses energy almost at the speed of light every second, and it never goes away, and it's been gathering up for 80 years. Think of an 80-year snowstorm that never melted. Then you can appreciate the nuclear industry. But this is just a single site that had a pulse event. Investigation chairman, one Fukushima may destroy the entire country. Collapse of a whole country is possible. And when you watch the next couple of minutes, you'll appreciate why that's possible. The plume, which you would, if you could see it, you would call it a snowstorm. Because that's what it would look like if you can see it. But you can't see it. And everything with replicating cells has no autoimmune trigger to defend against it. Which means everything with replicating cells can't survive a continuous bombardment of these emissions. Fukushima plume model shows 1 million atoms, and when you see the Becquerel, that's the pulse of energy every second, at almost at the speed of light. Can you make something go to the speed of light? I can't. Can your car go to the speed of light? You know what I mean? Like, this is an enormous amount of energy for every, we're going to call them snowflakes for a minute, radioactive snowflakes, and they pulse at energy almost at the speed of light every second for millions of years. That's what a Becquerel is. But you can't have the pulse of energy with the physical atom. And my detractors will try to convince you, if you're not paying attention, that a Becquerel is just a pulse of energy. It doesn't mean nothing. But it takes a physical atom to produce and it's not a decay, it's a pulse of energy almost at the speed of light for millions of years. When something takes 1 million years, if it takes your car 1 million years to run out of fuel, is that a decay? No. as an energy source. So 1 million atoms, and so square meter means physically landed underground. That's physically underground. That is assimilated into all the plants and trees and the to the species, right? To every species. And on top of that, because it's pulsing energy at the speed of light, every species on the entire planet is getting bombarded with X-rays, full body X-rays, humans included. Have I got your attention yet? So this was a model of the xenon-133, which is what that study is based upon. But there's many different isotopes. I'm not going to show you too many, but I'll show you some that are acknowledged, that we've seen, that we got, that we quantified, that we've done studies to prove that they actually showed up. 20 million particles. This was covered up. Blah, blah. 20 million particles. This is physical particles that were ionized and radiated, atomized in aerosol and released into the environment and are a problem for everything with replicating cells. And each one of these particles are pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. So that's iodine-121. And we know there's 9 times more 122, iodine-122, 132, and there's 9 times more 133 iodines, which are 9 times more effective at ionizing and radiating thyroid glands of all the species than unbelievably effective iodine-131. So this is not a game, unfortunately. There was radioactive follow to the iodine-131 in a single bed of kelp off California. It was at 40 million atoms of iodine-131, a single bed of kelp. And you can appreciate why that was, because there was so much per liter. And where does typical rainwater, the majority of it, run to on a coastline? In the communities and cities on the coastline, it runs down to the shorelines, right? And this is why you don't see starfish and sea anemones and oysters and scallops and mussels and everything else in your tidal zones anymore. Another study of the iodine was deaths are up 48% since iodine spiked in the tap water in Philadelphia. It wasn't just Philadelphia. We got many headlines across North America, Canada, America, and New Mexico, quantifying that the plumes that were acknowledged in studies had many, many, many horrifying attributes, catastrophic, deadly, lethal attributes. And for every iodine-131, there's 31 times more iodine-129 with a 15 million year half-life. And so they want you to focus on something with a short half-life. But what I'm going to show you is all kinds of different isotopes. So you can appreciate it's not just cesium, it's not just iodine. Because they have the majority of the population, certainly not my regular viewers, but the majority of the population is, to be polite, we'll call it complacent or unaware and uncaring of this stuff, because they've been lulled into that complacency by Spider-Man and the Hulk and all the other superheroes meant to manipulate your lexicon. West Coast hit with 220 million atoms per liter. This stuff never goes away. So the stuff I'm showing you of just the iodine is going to saturate, and any gamma, by the way, will saturate the thyroid gland, the adrenaline gland, or the pituitary. And this stuff never goes away. But what it means is for every species, particularly kids, your children, your grandchildren, radioactive hormones for the rest of their life as they're developing, because they're developing. And when you're getting hit with this big of a dose of one isotope, as I already showed, there's many other isotopes, which means they're producing radioactive stem cells too, because their skeleton is compromised. And comparing the radioactive folly with an X-ray or CAT scans are considered, and appropriately so, meaningless. Because when you inhale it or consume it or drink it or shower in it, the particles increase the exposures. And think about the word particle, because there was 20 million particles of iodine-131 in the study. The radiation exposure by a factor of 1 trillion. Right. So particles are the parts where the buildings have atomized an aerosol at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures and became ionized and radiated, and are now. So it's not just a fuel that is capable of becoming ionized and radiated and causing you harm for the rest of your life in every species, but it's all the structure of the building can become atomized and aerosol and ionized and radiated, and it did. And this is the horror of the nuclear industry that this industry was well aware of. It's well aware that this was going to happen. Xenon-133 in Washington at 450,000 times above detectional levels and persisted for weeks. So I'm showing you a significant amount of different isotopes in catastrophic numbers. And in catastrophic numbers. And then the poll here tonight is why we're seeing and we're putting that. So the poll is meant to draw your attention to a subject. And because they pushed all my buttons over the last couple of weeks, I've been doing this poll for the last couple of weeks. The nuclear industry pushed me a little bit too far. So I might do this only poll for the next year, just out of pure meanness. How Japan's pulse event of radioactive fallout, how compromised, it's supposed to be has, I smurfed it up, compromised the future of all species and humans. And what I'm showing you is how Japan's pulse event of radioactive fallout compromised the future of all species and humans. I didn't realize I'd done that. That don't happen too often, but you got to realize I've been doing this. We're doing almost 300 shows a year for a decade, right? And we also do research expeditions in that period too, major 4 to 5 months on the ocean at a time without coming home, doing species counts. So you have all these different isotopes. Cesium plume forecast for North America, which was a doozy. There was a lot of different medias reported on it, right? High concentrations of radiation hit the United States and Canada. The plume was rich in cesium-137. It was rich and close to the surface where, your children and you and the insects and birds and mammals now. And cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet every second. It doesn't throw energy that far. It pulses it almost at the speed of light. So imagine what that's doing to every creature and every insect and the biotas, DNA and chromosomes and cells and organs. So this was the French government of cesium-137. The IRSN at 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. And by the way, cesium also immediately damages the heart muscles. You've seen a massive spike in heart attacks and death by heart attacks and heart problems. I bet you are. Fukushima nuclear plume that covered the whole planet, a continuous plume that has never stopped, it might never stop, covered most of North America, including now over North Atlantic, the Caribbean, Canada, East Coast. It done that in just a few weeks, right? This was another model of the radioactive fallout based on the releases. So it's a study based on releases of neptunium-239. This is a nasty isotope. You think iodine is bad. This is at least 50 times worse than iodine-131. And it decays in 2.5 days. And it decays to plutonium-239, which was named after the devil. And the problem is, though, in all of these studies, models I'm showing you, and by the way, here's a plutonium model based on TEPCO's numbers. These are based on 20 days. But the biggest byproduct in every one of these plumes I showed you is the curium isotopes. And the curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. Congenital malformations for children, 2019 study, was showing per 100,000 children, babies, 14.2%, 14,200 of them needed open heart surgery. Because it's like a banana and a potato chip, right? Like flying on an airplane. The radioactive rain caused 130 schools in South Korea to close. The Fukushima forecast showed cesium-137 iodine over the northern hemisphere on May the 5th. This was the Norwegian Institute of Air Research. And a textbook was acknowledging Fukushima disaster contaminated the territory of Japan, the entire country. But obviously what I'm showing is the whole planet. And the sea of South Korea and North Korea. Up to 8 orders of magnitude above the global fallout background. The air in Tokyo was 270 times more cesium gamma than global weapons fallout, by the way. Nuclear fallout will engulf Taiwan. So it wasn't just South Korea. They closed the schools and told people to stay home. Unlike Canada, unlike the United States. Tokyo neighbor in Japan itself, where they're burning the radioactive debris, the ashes at the incinerator, rather, in this particular case, was at 70,000. The garbage, 90% of it was burnt away. So what was left was at 70,000. The rest of it was liberated into the environment, and you can't destroy it by burning it in the incinerators. And that the radioactive material from the reactors, before they melt down, just the emissions from the fuel pools, and there's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. And the fuel pools is where they put the reactor cores that are splitting atoms. Same as you would for boiling water for millions of homes and businesses. Once you take it out of the reactor core, there's no containment, and now it's pumped up the tall, skinny stacks at the nuclear power plants. Radioactive material from the reactor is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. And when you breathe it into you, it gives you 1 trillion times more dose than it would from externally. And we're almost to the show. We got a really good first story. And we're going to 6 more clicks or something. Rumors still, I'm not going to cover this story till after. Rumors still blamed for Fukushima food problem 2013 harmful rumors. So let me just recap this one more time. So you had tsunamis and the horror of that. And the trauma will go on forever. You have the tsunami going through nuclear power plants where you had them detonate and detonate. That's reactor 1 detonating, reactor 3 detonated, reactor 2 detonated and burnt constantly for several days. Reactor 4 to your left detonated, and the media pretended they were at the top of the building that doesn't even exist. You have a single power plant breaking down can destroy your whole country. Why would you have that in your country for? Wants to be gained by something so silly and stupid as that. Fukushima plume model shows 1 million atoms a square meter over the west coast. We have the models of it. There's 20 million atoms per liter rainfall. There was 220 million atoms of iodine 129 per rainfall. And that inhaling the particles increases the exposure by a factor of 1 trillion. Pulses of energy in your body wrecking your chromosomes, your DNA every second. That's what that means. See? And by a factor of 1 trillion is you're wrecking hundreds of thousands, millions of chromosomes and DNA and cells every second. Your body got to try to repair that every second and also attack the source every second. It has to do that for the rest of your life. And that's what he means by the exposure increases radiation exposure by a factor of 1 trillion. But you're creating all these mutated chromosomes and DNA and cells in your body. Do you got any idea the autoimmune issues that's going to create on its own? And your body can't keep up with that. It can't repair that damage every second. Particularly if you're bioaccumulating it and it's saturated in your environment. What I'm showing you is a saturation of your environment. 450,000 times above detection levels, which means you could be 3 or 4 million atoms per square meter. We know the CCM studies were shown at 1 million to 10 million atoms with the French government per cubic meter of air. That pulses energy 600 feet. And it damaged all kinds of permanent lesions to your organs. We know we got plume models of neptunium covering the whole planet in 20 days. We got plume models of plutonium-239 covering the planet in 20 days. We got South Korea closed down and Taiwan closed down their schools and everything else. We got acknowledgement from all kinds of institutions, but have been silent ever since. They're burning the garbage. You can't get rid of the sediment from the water filtration facilities. The garbage is too radioactive. It should never have been burnt. And when you burn it, you're just liberating. It comes to North America within a couple of days. It's a perpetual assault upon you and your loved ones and everything you care about and every hope and dream you have ever had. And that just emissions from any reactors. There's 6 times more breast cancer if you live within 15 miles of these disease factories. This is why I call them disease factories. Imagine something so harmful that is rated by the U.S. government at 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. Like cyanide or whatever. It's 2 billion times more toxic. You have to use 2 billion times less radiation than you do of cyanide to destroy somebody, or your child, or your pets, or your future. So this story from Harmful Rumors, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags on top of all of this. Rumors still blamed from Fukushima food problems. Rumors. And this story here really, it's hard to appreciate because this is mainstream media. And the picture they're showing you, temporary radioactive soil storage site hinders the farmers. Now, it didn't seem to hinder that farmer. She's harvesting the food. How did it hinder them? Rice paddy in the foreground serves as the temporary storage site for piles of black plastic bags containing... These are 2,200 pound bags. You can only put one in the biggest pickup truck you got out there. And there's 30 million of these 1-ton bags, which bumper to bumper 1-ton pickup trucks would be 5 rows of traffic around the planet continuously, bumper to bumper. In order to go all the way around the planet, walk across the opposite way around the planet, you're going to have to step on the bumpers of 5 trucks, 10 trucks to get past to the other side, start again. Rice paddies in the foreground served as a temporary storage site for piles of black plastic bags. These should be calling them 1-ton bags of radioactive fodder because that's what they are. And slightly over 90% of the 30 million 1-ton bags are temporarily stored on farmland. And as soon as you get it off the farmland, even if it's across the street, they start growing food. And the best way to describe that is called madness. And it's called heartbreak because the issues, the heart problems, the liver problems, the lung problems, the respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, the adrenaline, the Alzheimer's, the dementia, the autism, the diabetes, the Down syndrome, the schizophrenia from the poisoned food is a curse on humanity and has compromised the future. Has compromised the future of all species and humans. All right, here we go. Geothermal energy gains a favor in Trump administration policies. Probably the best story possible. And so what's going on is the Trump administration sees geothermal as friendly, and that the Energy Department now projects that geothermal, they call it advanced, but it should have been advanced 50 years ago. It should have advanced before nuclear ever showed up. Nuclear was meant to keep us out there. Hey, we got James calling in. Hello, James. Hang on. Here we go. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How you doing, man?
Hey. I just had to call real quick because, like, the synchronicity happened again. You're talking about harmful rumors, and that's what I've been working on my next track. I've been working on this opera about harmful. I'm like, how is this possible?
Because I know you put that comment in there tons of times, right? And I giggle every freaking time I see it. The harmful rumors, because most people don't appreciate it. Go ahead.
Well, I just can't get over how the Japanese tried to like utilize that phrase, and people like went with it. They're like, oh, okay, and it was just complete gaslighting. Like, you can't get better gaslighting than that. I mean, harmful rumors.
As if there's no nuclear meltdowns, right? Harmful rumors covered the entire planet with radioactive fallout. It is crazy. Go ahead, James. You were going to make a point. I cut you off.
Absolutely crazy. But I wanted to touch base too, just to let you know that I've been battling Craig. This guy, I think I exposed him finally.
You're gonna give him a mental breakdown. You know that, right?
Well,
because you're actually a nice person, right? Like when you talk, you're not like me, where I'm quite the bastard. But you're actually a nice person. You're very politically correct when you're talking. So.
Well, I'm offended greatly by the fact that he has this damn screen name, Dana Durnford, Kevin Blanche defunct. I really hate that.
I do too.
Like,
I really hate it. Yeah, I just hate it, because I'm actually not a bad person, and it's because he leaves comments everywhere, see, and it sounds like Dana Durnford saying it right to the average person who doesn't subconsciously to the average person that comes across as Dana Durnford or Kevin Blanche said it. Those offensive comments, right?
Yeah, and he has all these other burner accounts too, which is so he's just violating YouTube policies.
Oh yeah.
Completely right up in the air, and he gets away with it. And anyway, so I had a wild hair up my ass, I guess, and just wanted to start a fight with him and just off on him about something. And he wrote back, and and I'm like, why don't you go to Nigeria and do it and check out the uranium mine,
the French uranium mine down there.
How great that is.
I wouldn't go there. You wouldn't get me there.
And he said that he goes back, like, why don't you go to Nigeria and go to the gold mines and go to the da-da-da mines? But he's trying to equate, basically, that all the mines are the same danger. They all
exactly. No, great point, actually. Important point, too. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm like, you're insane, Craig, if you're going to compare a gold mine with uranium mine. You're just absolutely insane.
Yeah, thank you.
And I just went on and on and on. So he replies back, like, why don't you go look up AU-198? I'm like, you got it, kidding. You got to be. Is he really this stupid? He's going to bring up radioactive gold isotope that can only be made in a reactor and conflate that like that's part of gold mining?
It makes you wonder, is it somebody else that he leases the count out to? Does the International Atomic Energy Agency have a set of keys to that, I wonder? That would make sense.
It's just, so, and I basically just went out and said to him, I'm like, nobody with a good heart would promote nuclear energy.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, brilliant.
So it just proves that you're part of the industry somehow. You're out here to defame Dana and Kevin, who have been for all these years doing everything they can to be truthful about what's taking place. And
he comes back with a garbage can diagnosis every time, basically, right? He comes back with something that's irrelevant. But the fact is, he read the comment. And see, eventually, he's sleeping or he's driving down the road or he's talking to a friend and he has these little epiphanies that he don't like. And so the reason he's replying to you is because he's trying to justify that he's a worthless human, right? This is how he's trying to justify it. It's a pathetic way too. Go ahead, James.
Oh, it's incredible. But he doesn't understand, because I've got AI in the background, just analyzing everything you say. It's funny. It's like you can't compete with that. And that's the thing people need to understand is like, if you want to troll somebody and you don't know what you're talking about, like, I actually responded to a comment on a video about there's somebody had something about Fukushima. It was an older video, but it was people were responding about how nuclear is crazy and everything, and I'm adding to the conversation. Somebody says, "Well, what do we do if we don't have? What's the alternative?" They're asking for like what is the main.
That's a straw man argument
like,
too, right?
Yeah. Hydrogen and geothermal.
Yeah, hydrogen's wicked. I love hydrogen. Hydrogen's the way. And not the pink hydrogen either, right? But hydrogen from anything else, yeah.
But somebody responded to me and they said, no, hydrogen actually depletes the ozone layer because it reacts with the oxygen. And so I just simply take that comment, like, can you help me analyze this, where this person's coming from? And it's like, let's take this and help them out. Yeah,
I need if someone says that to me, I need a couple of aspirins right away. I'm just like, oh God. Well,
but that's the thing. I mean, so people are they're just so lost. I mean, and if you think about that,
probably seen it on The Simpsons or something. See?
Oh, absolutely. But
that's where people get.
I don't want to keep it on.
Oh, that's great. No,
I
just get a little break there.
Something that happened today.
Yeah.
I was on a conference call. I was talking to a guy up in Newfoundland. It's like 40 minutes away from Dildo. and like he's talking about how he got COVID. I'm like, how does someone from northern Newfoundland get COVID?
Jesus.
And so like, and I know it's a touchy subject, but with things the way they are today, we don't have to worry about as much as we had to. But
yeah,
I asked the question. I'm like, do you eat seafood? So, oh yeah, all the time.
They're not getting it. They're not getting it locally.
I didn't elaborate any more than that.
They're not getting it locally.
Yeah.
They're not getting it locally.
How do you get a respiratory virus when you're in Newfoundland and no one's around you, but you eat seafood? How does that work?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's a great point, actually.
Figure it out.
Maybe it's radioactive fallout in the seafood that has the same attributes as the alleged. And you can't say it on YouTube without repercussion. Well, last time they attacked me, I posted 14,000. Go ahead.
But it's like you said, the atom gets into the body, the immune system's attacking. It's very, very busy. One atom.
It's forever.
One atom.
It's forever, every second, too.
Your immune system is taxed, and then what happens? You get opportunistic.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because the same things that they say COVID will cause are the exact stuff that radiation actually causes, right? And if you're eating seafood up here, you're going to end up... Like you said, we got one community here. Last year, I think it was, I reported on it, that in a week and a half, 2-week period, was 5 people under the age of 50 just dropped dead, either walking down the road or out in their garden or out in the shed with their buddies, just dropped dead. These were all seafood eaters, right? Right? That's, what you're saying is 100% right.
It doesn't take a genius to know that Mott's fuel never happened before, and we don't have any idea like what ramifications or consequences that could bring when it's liberated into the ocean.
And we sure can postulate now, though. We can sure point fingers. Right? We can point fingers.
Why is this the only show on YouTube, Dana, that you're talking? It's unbelievable.
It's hard.
But anyway, let me let you go.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's great stuff. I love it.
All right,
it's awesome. Okay, buddy, I love you, buddy. Take care now. Yeah. Bye-bye. That's James. We love James. That guy, his music is amazing, eh? He doesn't I don't think he really appreciates it. Maybe he does, but his music is incredible. And, like yesterday, I think, yesterday I mentioned that I was... Like, so what happened the weekend was I went into the city to pick up an axle for the trailer, and because there was one on sale, and It's a brand new axle, right? I was like, frig it, I got to get it, right? Because I'll never get the other chance, and I end up paying too much money down the road when I finally, in the spring, right? And I got in the city, and I said, like, I'm ran into the ground. I spent all day Thursday, after I finished up, slept all evening, never done a show. Then Friday, I slept all day. And Saturday, I got busy out in miserable temperatures. And Sunday, went into the city, and I realized I better get my act together, take care of myself a little bit. And so I bought new sheets. I bought feathered pillows and pillowcases and some other things that gives me comfort in the home, right? That I absolutely... And last night was the best night's sleep I had in years and years and years. And my left arm didn't, like, drive me insane. It was amazing, right? These new sheets and new pillowcases, new pillows. And because I have to work there 6, 7, 8 hours a day to put these shows together. Not that I always get through them into one show, but to put these shows together, just to gather up everything, typically 6 to 8 hours, depending on. And that's pretty rough on you. You got to read the stories, and then you got to go back and read the story again and screen capture what you want to use. And so another one I picked up, I seen a blanket, a really heavy, very, very comfortable blanket, because it's freezing down there, right? So when I'm out there working for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time. And so the day I was using the blanket, I was like, why didn't I do this a couple of years ago? Why am I so stupid? Because you got to have, like, everything goes into this operation 24 hours a day. Everything I can get my hands on. I got so much equipment. I got a list and a list and a list. I got just my list for parts on Amazon is over $1,400 sitting there. Tomorrow I got to go out and put... because tomorrow's it's going to warm up a little bit, and then there's going to be nuts all the way up until March again for cold temperatures. But tomorrow's supposed to warm up compared to the freezing, bitter cold like today. I was out for 5 hours or something. So tomorrow I got to put a caliper on the front driver's side. I'm not looking forward to it. But if I don't do it tomorrow, I'm going to hate it doing it any other day, because it's going to be minus 15, minus 20, right? And so tomorrow it's going to be minus, in the afternoon it'll be minus 2 or something. So I'm going to go for it, get everything ready tomorrow morning, and then when it warms up, just go ahead and do it, right? And the only reason I can do stuff like this, keep everything working, is because we bought all the tools. We built an actual machine shop over the last 2 years. Dedicated everything that came in to buying equipment for the machine shop. And because I used to run a big fleet of commercial dive vessels, and I do all kinds of repairs and train everybody and everything else. And I was a commercial diver, 6 hours a day on the ocean floor. And I thrived in that environment for some reason. I always had a list of 100 things you need to do, and I still got a big list of endless things that got to get done, right? Let's get after it here, because I'll start gibbering and jabbering. Rumors still blamed for Fukushima problem. Yeah, and James is going to give Craig, who's the nemesis of humanity in many ways, a nervous breakdown, because it just approaches him as an honest person, right? Whereas me, I'll tear into him. I can't stand Craig, right? He's a despicable creature. But James will talk to him like another human, and then explain to him why he's not like the other humans. It's pretty funny, man. He sent me screen captures of some of the stuff. It's how do you come back and be mean to somebody that's actually honest, right? And that's why he gets the answers he gets from Craig, is because Craig doesn't understand what it's like to be a good person. And so it confuses him whenever James comments to him. Geothermal energy gains favor in Trump's administration policy. So they're talking about 90 gigawatts. A gigawatt is enough to power almost 1 million homes. And it shouldn't take till 20 to 50. If they went after it, they can have 25 to 30 gigawatts every year up and running. You just got to give the word. And the techniques for drilling deeper exist, and you can buy out the patents off those companies, and mass produce this stuff, or just get the company to mass produce. So what basically for geothermal is you would use pneumatic drills, like 25,000 pounds per square inch water jets to cut the rocks down deep, and then they're using pneumatic hammers to pound that and pulverize it, and then the drill bit goes down through all of that, and that gets sucked up the line, right? So they can drill a lot quicker and a lot deeper, and they can do it anywhere and get down to temperatures that are better than gas, solar, wind, or nuclear, and just replace them. And any community can build it. You don't have to worry about waste. You don't have to worry about anything. Everything is 100%. It's the best, the most. It's better than anything because it's not like a river where you might interrupt breeding stocks and fish and wildlife and everything else. It's not like gas, nuclear, oil, where you're using enormous amounts of water, which kills just an enormous amount of creatures. It's geothermal, and all geothermal, everything is a cycle on top of that. And so another way that there's another company, Quatsi Electric, what they're going to do is drill deep enough with a special technique that basically evaporates the rocks. Right, so something this big, they'll just evaporate the rocks all the way down and install their geothermal system. And anybody can build it. Any community can build their own geothermal system and be up and running that year. And the community would get their money back in 3 or 4 years. And then the price of electricity for that community can drop it down to a quarter and still have a massive profit. And after a couple of years, they can take some of that profit and build another geothermal backup plant. So if they want to do, if there's new techniques come in, they can get it installed and have the backup one ready to run and replace it. I mean, why wouldn't you use geothermal? And 90 gigawatts, we're more likely to see that than we are the small modular reactor. A lot of stories in small modular reactors pushing stocks in small modular reactor companies. For goodness sakes, don't invest in that. There is no small modular reactors. They've been at it 80 years. They still haven't got it. They're not trying. It's a Ponzi scheme. It meant to rob the unsuspecting investors. And the 14 biggest financial institutions are investing money for 2 weeks at a time, basically, in small modular reactor companies buying big chunks of their stocks, which makes it look like the stocks are rising. And so then mom and pop operations investors are encouraged by the stock market to buy stocks in these small modular reactors. They look good. They look at everything. They say, well, that looks great. Let's do it. And they can make big money here every week off of that. And a week later, the 14 biggest financial institutions will sell their shares, and the bottom drops out. But when they sold their shares, they took all the mom and pops, the majority of their money with them. So the mom and pop buys it at $40 a share, and a week later, the shares go down to $26. And every 3 or 4 weeks, we see that over and over and over, pump and dump. And that they're not trying to build the small modular reactors. Are making a fortune, but they're not trying to build reactors. They don't have applications into the regulatory agencies, and the ones that do have the same particular attributes. They don't have a supply network, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have a facility to build it, they don't have the attributes of following through on what they're saying they're going to do. And last night I slept like a freaking baby. It was amazing. New sheets, new pillows, new pillowcases. And I didn't cheap it. I went for high threads and cotton because cotton is really good for you. Towns near Fukushima plant struggle to attract families with children. This is the craziest, the most lunatic, the most insane story conceivable. This is a community that's joined onto the nuclear plant. And the media is lamenting that they can't get people to bring their children into the nuclear meltdown zone. That's a nuclear meltdown zone. It was abandoned for 13 years. It should never have been opened up. They can't quantify opening these communities. These are nuclear wastelands with ongoing nuclear meltdowns right alongside of it. And it breaks my heart every time I see that. But by the way, that story there, that's Sue sent me that. And that's one of the best stories, the geothermal story, 90 gigawatts by 2050. That's the best story imaginable. Because, like, finally, that's the first time I've ever seen any governments worldwide come out and say that we're going to pull the trigger on it. Not only that, we're going to have 90 gigawatts by 2050 or earlier. If they go after it, they'll have it sooner than that. If they go after, like, Quatsi Electric and help them mass produce their technology and go after that other company using pneumatic water jets to cut the rocks and pneumatic hammers to pulverize it, we'll be up and running in 2 or 3 years. You'll be looking at 50 gigawatts a year. You only need 4,800 to replace all the gas, oil, and coal plants worldwide. 4,800 gigawatts. So you can do this in a short order. There was 660 gigawatts of solar power last year, which is equal to 700 large nuclear power plants in 12 months, which is double the power plants on the planet currently. In 12 months, came online in renewables and solar power. But you should have geothermal and backup with solar power. We know we can do the solar power now. There's no illusions. It's very efficient too. Japan has just came up with another one that's even 12 or 14% more efficient. But the geothermal is your savior. It will always be that way. It's the simplest, mindless technology on the planet to create. Any community can do it. Any engineering company can build a geothermal plant. Any of them. And it's infinitely cheaper by the megawatt, which powers 1,000 homes, than nuclear, small modular reactors, or microreactors could even dream of. They're the most expensive because there's no economy of scale, right? When it comes to nuclear. Only geothermal and wind and solar. But geothermal first, guaranteed 24/7, perpetual energy, and back it up for peak energy with wind and solar and storage. And there's many, many storages. Town near Fukushima plant struggles to attract families with children. Really, in a nuclear wasteland. Who would have figured, eh? Near the Fukushima nuclear plant. Not nuclear meltdown. They don't show you pictures. They don't show you pictures of a nuclear disaster, do they? Like the Medusa Reactor 3, if just that alone had melted, you can't justify moving people anywhere within 100 miles of it. 1,000 miles of it. You'd be stupid to live within 100 miles of it. You're still insane if you live within 1,000 miles of it. You're still insane if you live on the planet, because you can't escape it, as I showed you earlier at the beginning. The plumes cover the entire planet. And like you're talking about, do you want to move kids back into a nuclear wasteland? But yet, Wall Street Journal reported in 2011 that the officials, the same people that moved the kids there in the first place, had sharply raised the radiation levels for victims to get iodine pills after the meltdown. It was 75 times higher for the children than the nut jobs disgusting WHO recommended for children. Like, you got to be a certain levels and levels above anything in a jail cell right now of evil to do something like that. There's not a single person in any jail cell worldwide is evil enough to do that. I can tell you that right now. And by rights, when you look at the lies are told by your local journalists and the major medias, that's why we have racketeering statutes, is to get rid of these parasites on humanity. So they raised the qualifications 75 times higher than recommended by the crazies for iodine pills. And they're moving children. The same people are moving children back into a nuclear wasteland. And these communities, Fukushima City, for instance, you can see this line here is atoms of cesium for some reason. Apparently, nothing else matters to the nut jobs. Subsequent meltdowns, like no prominence whatsoever for massive nuclear meltdowns, really. Unprecedented, unseen, never seen before event like this, and it just gets brushed off as if meltdowns. Not even nuclear meltdowns. You had to go look for the word nuclear. See, they're not pretending they're at the top of that building for something to do. They're pretending they're at the top of that building because Fukushima is an extinction event. How has Japan's pulse event of radioactive fallout compromised the future of all species and humans? Well, yeah, of course it has. Has seen a significant decline in its estimated population. There was 865,000 extra cancers, by the way, in the first year. A significant decline in the population of the nuclear wasteland. Why would that be? I wonder. I can't imagine why people wouldn't want to live in a nuclear wasteland. I can't wrap my mind around why people would want to live in a nuclear meltdown zone. My brain doesn't accept it. Everybody should move back into a nuclear wasteland, shouldn't they? So the nuclear industry looks good that way, see? Do it for the most degenerate monsters on the planet, the people of the nuclear industry. Move back in there so that most degenerate monsters on the planet can pretend to their friends and families that they have some types of human attributes. Futaba County, which is Fukushima, joined on to the hip of the nuclear meltdown, home to the nuclear meltdown, that straddles the town of Futaba and Okuma, is the community that's abandoned on the other side, but they're letting people move back in because a lot of people just don't understand the minutiae of the details of how harmful and dangerous and brutal and vicious radiation fallout actually is. With prolonged evacuation of residents drastically reducing the numbers of children in a nuclear meltdown. So Futaba is in the red zone. And what they done is they went in and they picked up 1-ton bags in this little area and said that people can move back to you got to get out of your car and get in your house, though. You can't go in the garden. You can't cross the street or something. And they found a few people completely illiterate that was willing to do it. And then all the media seized upon that as if now it's safe to go back. And how do you pretend that these people are human after doing that to them? So see the red, that's the nuclear meltdown. Right alongside of it is Futaba, and on the other side of it is Okuma. And they put it in pink because being evil, they call it difficult to return zone. You'll see that right behind me in a second. These are not difficult to return zones. These are ongoing, never-ending nuclear meltdowns. And nuclear wastelands. And to put it in pink, the ultimate insult to humanity. Radiation is an insult to everything with replicating cells. It injures them permanently forever. Children, reducing the number of children in a nuclear wasteland. How friggin' terrible. Why would you let a child go into a nuclear wasteland? You should be arrested for not trying to stop them. The people in Japan, I'm talking about. The parents should be arrested for bringing their children into a nuclear wasteland. That's child abuse as child abuse could ever be. I was busted up this evening. I got in the house 3:30. I was like, oh. It struck me. And I had some pea soup. That was it for Dana. I had to go to sleep then for a couple hours just to try to recover. So, like, the rule of thumb is, if you had a long day or rough day or your body's worn out, what you should do is drink a glass of water, room temperature water, about an hour before you go to bed, because your body, when you sleep, it starts repairing itself, and there's a lot of stuff that it needs to get out of your body, excrete out of your body. And so when you wake up in the morning, have another glass of water to help your body now excrete the damaged material out of your body. So at nighttime, you drink the water an hour before you go to bed. That's so your body gets some water to work. It needs water to work with. And then in the morning, you get another glass of warm water. Not warm water, but water, room temperature water is good for you. Into you to help flush the poison that your body collected and repaired and everything else overnight. And another good thing to do is use a face cloth and wash your face every night, because your face gathers up a lot of oil. Too much oil, right? If you're working and you're stressing and you're doing this and you're doing that. And it's really good if you do it in the middle of the day too for you. But increases the number of children remains a tall order. Thank goodness. This story is from 2012. This is 1 year after. 30% of Fukushima now with tumors of 2 centimeters or less. Tumors of 2 centimeters or less. Tumors. Not thyroid cysts, but tumors. 13,646 out of 38,000. Before Fukushima, it was 1 in a million children. Now, the children's thyroid gland, by the way, is only 2 centimeters. The adults is 5 by 3 centimeters. The thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is where you're making all the hormones. It stores hormones now, also in your pituitary gland in your brain, for instance. And you're going to have radioactive hormones, particularly to children, which needs an absurd amount for development, right? Remember, in that same time frame, the 1 year period, there was 865,000 extra cancers, excess cancers, compared to any other year. A spike of almost 1 million cancers in the first year. And cancer is typically latent. And not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed. And it's not just cancer that's going to manifest. Heart problem, liver, lung, respiratory, the list is very long. And your immune system's compromised, so now you're more susceptible to pathogens and viruses that were normally harmless and innocuous and benign. With 72 parents with children under the age of 15 who live in Futaba County, 72 parents, they should be arrested for child abuse for taking their children into a nuclear wasteland and should get significant jail time for keeping them there. This is the worst case of child abuse imaginable, is putting a child who's developing in a nuclear wasteland. And the nuclear industry has compromised all the species because the species breed much more than humans, right? Replicating themselves many generations sometimes 1 year for species. And when you assault them with perpetual radiation fallout and full body x-rays worldwide, without the species, there is no future. And without the world fighting back, there is no future. And it's heartbreaking that I'm the only show on the planet. It's heartbreaking. And the idea of these shows are educational programs. Right, they were supposed to be just for a few years, educational program, get a lot of the bloggers and people educated on the topic and information documentation, provide them with an overwhelming amount of documentation and field research. We do field research too. We're geared up now to go out this winter and do field research. Well, we're getting there. We're close enough. We can make something happen. But it's a long process, right? We spent 6 years doing ocean research, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean without coming home. This is not a 2-week research expedition. This exceeds any kind of research that we're aware of when it comes to Fukushima, by orders of magnitude too. It's a sacrifice. Many have sacrificed. to see this through, right? Residents have been slow to return to a nuclear wasteland. I just can't understand it. Why would people be slow to return to a nuclear wasteland? Anybody know? They didn't watch enough Simpsons, see? Or enough Spider-Man or enough of the Hulk. Otherwise, you wouldn't earn straight back, I guess. Amid the slow return of younger generations to the nuclear wasteland. Like, it's absurd that somebody would write that. It's absurd. Whoever wrote that from the International Atomic Energy Agency and gave it to the media, they should be forced to put their names on those stories, right? Former Prime Minister, half the people in Japan were close to being evacuated. Imagine half your country has to evacuate because your power plant broke down. Because it's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in sunshine and climbing fucking mountains and flying out of airplanes. No, because it's lethal to everything with replicating cells. Dana. In late November, cheerful voices. So whoever wrote this is sadistic monster, by the way. Echoed throughout the municipal housing complexes at the train station in the nuclear wasteland. A housewife smiled warmly while watching the lively children running around in the nuclear wasteland. Oh, they're going to get cancer. It's going to be excellent. How many people out there, when their children got cancer, said this is excellent? None, right? In October, the idiot couple that should be charged with child abuse took their 4 children and relocated to a nuclear wasteland. And they were quoted by the despicable, disgusting parasite who wrote the article as saying, the charm of the place is we can relax with our children in great nature. In nature, with no birds or insects. Like, the word monster doesn't quite... We got to come up with a word for these people that doesn't exist, because a monster doesn't come close to the hideousness, the monsterness of these connotations. Whoever wrote this story is sadistic monster. They're a soulless creature. They're not a public relation firm. They're literally and figuratively a monster. Worse than any dinosaur, worse than any jackal, worse than any crocodile. These are parasites and predators upon human and the 8 million species. In Futaba County, there are currently 22 facilities for children in a nuclear wasteland. Why would you buy anything from Japan? Why would you ever go to Japan? Why would you have anything to do with Japan? Why would you despise Japan? Including elementary, junior, high schools, as well as kindergarteners and daycare centers targeting children, see? According to the survey conducted by Nutjobs, about 1,320 victims, known as children, were enrolled in these despicable institutions as of April of last year. If you get on the roof of your house, you can see the nuclear meltdown, Mom. Let's go up in the house and watch the nuclear meltdown, Pa. These are not words you're going to hear, are you? Did you know, now look at this, that the media in the first week, the first month, April the 6th, less than a month, came out and said the reactor leaks were plugged with liquid glass, which is a mixture of sawdust, newspaper, and glue. So they fixed the nuclear meltdown with liquid glass. Look at it. They went in there and fixed it. And I should give you an idea how disgusting a journalist actually is, how despicable. Well, they're not really journalists, are they? They're bizarre creatures that hate you and your children and are attempting to destroy everything, kill everything. That's what their agenda appears to be. In the nuclear wasteland of Futaba, no educational facility has resumed operations so far. So what they done was they moved the victims there and they ship them out to school. Because being evil is just a job for some people. Do you got any idea how sadistic that actually is? Like, the institutions are not that far away. They're still in the Futaba area, but they're not in the Futaba community. They're still in the county, though. I don't know, like 15, 20 miles away. Like, they're so deep, they're so far removed from being a human that if you ask them to describe a human, if they were artists, you ask them to paint you a human, they would paint a monster. Because they see humans as monsters. It's something they can never be. They can never be a human. See, they think humans are bad. That's a better way of probably putting it. The wife, the mother of 4 children, planned to enroll her 5-year-old victim son and 1-year-old victim daughter to a daycare center affiliated with an elementary school in the adjacent town of Nami. Nami is a nuclear wasteland. Nami was abandoned for 7 years. And only a fraction of people were stupid enough to go back. That her 10-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son attend in another nuclear wasteland. But they live right alongside the ongoing nuclear meltdown. They live right alongside the ongoing nuclear meltdown. What are you doing, Tinker? I got a blocked Tinker again. He's sending me a whole bunch of fucking messages because, hey. Not messages, but videos. I'm just going to block him for a week here now. Hopefully he fixes it by then. These are all YouTube videos, right? I think he's got a virus on his phone or something that randomly sends out text messages to everybody, to probably videos that are making money for some other industry that he doesn't know is happening. So they're going to send their children to a nuclear wasteland in Nami, which is 7 kilometers away, which is on the other side, which is where Akuma is to, which is the same distance as Futaba, but on the north side of the biggest disease factory in human history, known as Fukushima. The town of Futaba provides support for children attending schools outside the town with transportation and other means. Children with 11 atoms a kilogram start to see heart problems. So why would you put your child in a nuclear wasteland? Irreversible heart damage for a child with 50 atoms a kilogram is just gamma. So that you're guaranteed to have permanent heart damage if you live in Futaba or Akuma counties, let alone the communities. The town plans to establish a new educational institution in 2028 that integrates an elementary school, a junior high school, a certified childcare center, and an after-school facility on the site of the former Futaba Junior High School. They tore it down because it was a nuclear wasteland. So they built they're building a new school there on the site of in the middle of a nuclear wasteland. Because the nuclear industry has endless amount of money. They have $1 billion a year just to come after people like me. And because there's only about 4 or 5 or 6 of us out there, everybody's being just... Now, I'm obviously taking a lot of flack because I'm probably the most prolific, unfortunately, I'm the most prolific producer of material when it comes to nuclear. Probably in history, no doubt. Certainly. And so I'm big. I got a great big stupid target right on my forehead and the back of my head. 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. This is absurd stuff. Not everybody's going to have cancer. Cancer is typically latent, right? But that's the first year. So extra 865,000 cancers. So imagine how evil you got to be to work for the International Atomic Energy Agency. Because if you do, you know this stuff. You know everything I'm showing you. The only way you can work there is if you're, like the rest of them, extremely evil. You're not compartmentalized. You're very aware of everything I'm telling you. That's the only way you're going to get a job with these people. Calling them people is an insult to everybody else on the planet, unfortunately. TV journalist, poison from Fukushima plant is spreading around the world, causing incalculable damage, and they may never get this under control. All right, so earthquake swarm hit Fukushima Prefecture with intensified activity. Intensified activity. So quite a long ways away from Fukushima. Just bear with me. In the middle of the country, We covered it a bit last night, quite a bit last night. But the story's still going strong. We got to talk about it a little bit. There's just this one story tonight in particular, but because this is going to erupt soon. This is going to erupt soon. Here we go. My apologies. Yeah, I'm still a little, I haven't stopped for so long, right? So it was pretty cool to sleep last night like I did. Amazing what new pillows and pillowcases and sheets will do for you, though. It's amazing. I didn't want to get out of bed this morning. That's not me at all, right? So I stayed there and listened to a lecture on the looking glass, which I'm starting to think that a lot of those stories are fake. So the earthquake was right in the middle, because Fukushima stays over right there. Right there. And so this is up in interior. This is a huge earthquake. It was on the Shindu scale. On the Shindu scale, you divide 7 into 10, the international scale, you get 1.428. And you multiply that by what the earthquake, if it's a lower, it goes in increments of 0.5. So 1, 1.5, 2, 2.53, all the way up to 7. There's no 7.5, right? So I went as 5 because it was a lower 5, which meant it's 5.5. And I multiplied by 5.3 for the international scale because it's a pretty shitty thing. They do that because they have a lot of earthquakes. They want to hide the damage, right? Which is a 7.6 earthquake on land. Right? On land. It's very shallow. It was a bit less than 10 kilometers. And it was away from the communities. Otherwise, there would have been huge damage. But what we're worried about is that last year, the Noto Peninsula, January 1st, 2024, the Noto Peninsula, Ichikawa Prefecture, had an earthquake, a significant earthquake, with a significant tsunami, and 75 miles of the coastline rose up 13 feet, and probably about a half a mile from the ocean and inland rose up about 13 feet for 75 miles. It dried out over 4 harbors permanently. There's 1,600 landslides. There was 1,600 aftershocks. Hundreds of people died. And they had the same attributes as what we're seeing right now. There was a 150-mile part of the country ripped open, wide open, that isolated people for almost 30 days. And incredibly, they didn't use helicopters to bring in supplies. So we're assuming the Shika nuclear plant had some kind of a meltdown at the fuel pool. And then in 2018, they had an earthquake they hit away from you that dropped the payloads on the Hokkaido Islands, to drop the payloads of all the mountains for many mountains. Dropped the payloads on every side. Have you ever seen an earthquake do that? They pawned it off as a 6.6 on the magnitude scale. It turned out to be a 7 out of a 7, which is they didn't say that though at the Wikipedia. They said a 7 on the Shindu scale. So unless you look up the Shindu scale, you will never know that the Shindu scale is a 7. So it's equal to a 10 out of a 10 on the Richter scale, the Richter scale. In 2018, that picture was from. From January to 19 to January to 26, the region recorded over 105 earthquakes, this was a lot of small earthquakes. But what it means is the earthquake in the Noto Peninsula, Ichikawa Prefecture, that earthquake was a dormant fault line that's been dormant for 3,000, 4,000 years. It ruptured, and the damage was catastrophic. And we covered it. You go back and look at my videos, January. We covered it for almost 4 weeks. The damage was everywhere. And then the nuclear power plant had literally a 7 out of a 7 in the basement of one of the reactors. They said you can't have a an earthquake in a basement of a building. The earthquake covers the whole hundreds and hundreds of miles, right? We know the town had a 7 out of a 7, and that the two pictures that came out of there wasn't the telephone pole standing tall. Everything was tilted over, and the roads were like spaghetti. But we never got any extra information after. We only had 2 pictures that originally came out in the first week. And this was the same community where they have a nuclear power plant that's been offline for quite a few years, but has very vulnerable fuel pools that we know spilled water. So we know there's a significant shake, and we know that coastline lifted up 13 feet and maybe a half a kilometer, say, 500 feet out into the ocean, 500 feet of land lifted up, which means there would have been significant damage at the nuclear power plant and for the water intakes and everything else. We know the community was wrecked on the other side of it. We know the ocean side was wrecked, but we don't know what happened to the Shik nuclear plant because they refused. They had journalists actually went there and only showed pictures of the very tops of the buildings, but from up close. So you're looking up at the very top. You're not looking at the top of the buildings. You're looking up at the top of a building. And we mocked that, of course, because it was so ridiculous to suggest that was the Shik nuclear power plant. They couldn't quantify it by showing the top of a building. So it's highly suspect that something must have happened there. Right, every telephone pole there must have been twisted and turned. The most powerful of these events struck January 23rd, and we covered it last night, which registered a magnitude 5.2, which works out to be not a magnitude 5.2, but the Shindu scale was a lower 5, which is a 5.5, and I used a 5.3 and multiplied 1.428 to get the Shindu scale. It was the strongest seismic event since 1919 in that area. So it was the strongest event since 1919 in that section, which leads me to believe, with the activity we're seeing there now, which is a lot, which is an amazing amount, that could be a fault line that's been dormant for who knows how many thousands of years, is about to split the country. And I hope I'm wrong, of course. Following this specific quake, the area experienced heightened aftershocks activity with 43 noticeable earthquakes recorded on the same day, which this is an amazing amount of earthquakes. So this is close to a volcano, which can lead to strong shaking felt on the surface because it was so shallow, less than 10 kilometers. And that there is a volcano west of the epicenter, but no correlation has been demonstrated. Well, it just happened. You can't say no and you can't say yes, but you definitely can't say no. You haven't had enough time to study this, and because this distinction is particularly important for the local population, as history has shown over and over and over, Japan's seismic activity is often linked closely with volcanic eruption. And what makes it important is because it's right across from the Niigata nuclear plant, the biggest in the world, that they just opened up. And right alongside of that, there was 6,600 houses in January the 1st, 2024, that were destroyed through liquefaction from the Noto Ishikawa Prefecture earthquake on January the 1st of 2024. And again, we covered that extensively. So if you go down into my videos for January, the first week of January, say January the 10th. By January the 10th, I had flushed the story out pretty damn good. Like, we were grabbing everything for almost 25 days or something. And even today, we're still convinced they had some kind of a nuclear event at the Shika nuclear power plant. Because if they didn't have any issues there, why didn't they show it to us? And if you go watch my presentations on that I worked unbelievably hard at doing, by the way. The emphasis is on preparation and heightened due to we already covered it. Okay. This is the stupidest story of the day, if that's possible. Every story with nuclear is stupid, isn't it? There's not a story they put out there that's not full of lies. I can't cover everything. I can't keep up with it in a 24-hour cycle. Like if we were a tribunal and we were judging all of these journalists on every story of nuclear each day on their merits from how they told a nuclear story, and then we had the ability to remove their degrees. Every day we would remove the degrees of 50 to 60 to 70 journalists. Every single day we would remove their degrees. And we would never run out of journalists probably. That industry is the most prolific and lethal industry that is attacking and assaulting every species and every human on this planet. And silence is the last option. It's not an option. So Hong Kong, China just done a sample and he said he didn't find any radiation. Now, of course, China banned all the food originally for 14 prefectures for a decade. But now they're telling a new story where they're saying nothing got out until August the 24th of 2023. And since that, there's only been tritium, and they don't see any tritium. So everything is good. Like that story is insane, but China is as pro-nuclear as they get. And so they have a lot at stake, because if they come out and acknowledge nuclear is terrible and has horrific attributes, which anybody that's honest is going to acknowledge, then that's it for the nuclear ambitions, right? The nuclear industry is just, they're revolting. They're the most cowardly people you'll ever come across. I can't comprehend more cowardly people. Their harm is so far-reaching. They have no right to exist as a human. As soon as they apply to go into the nuclear industry at university, they should be arrested and put in jail for 30 years. They give enough time to think about it. That's how evil this industry actually is. I'm not kidding you. At all. Not even a little tiny bit. I'm 100% serious. Restaurants urge review. Restaurants. Do you really believe restaurants are the catalyst behind this story? Restaurants urge a review of the ban. So China went out and done their first sample, says they didn't find anything off Fukushima. And so now all the restaurants are, you should ship us food from Japan. Come on, man. Do you got any idea how sadistic this industry actually is that they do stories like this? A fresh debate is brewing in Hong Kong. Chinese tested seawater. A sample, and they're saying then there's no impact on marine life because they took a sample of water. And so these idiots, these monsters from the industry, from the International Atomic Energy, no doubt, wrote the story. Will continue to do it because they have no opposition. There's no one to hold them accountable. There's no checks and balances. You're it. Japanese restaurant operator in Hong Kong called for an immediate review of the ban, but a food safety expert legislator said the city should be cautious. Simon Wong Ka-wo, president of the Hong Kong Federations and Restaurants, said on Friday review of the ban was long overdue. So it's not the restaurants that are calling for it. It's a single person, part of like a union kind of a guy, who sees a way to benefit and got paid off by the despicable little Japs that went down there for the nuclear industry, right? Little yellow eyes. It's like, why so evil? Well, why did they have to be so evil? Do they need to be so evil? No. But are they evil? Oh my goodness, yes. Just bear with me, folks. I gotta fix something. Well, I gotta fix so much stuff, because if I don't fix it now, I might forget about it later. And then when I go to help you, I'm going to whine and snivel and cry. So you don't want me whining and sniveling and crying, do you? Well, I can just fix it. There you go, it's fixed. Yee doggy. That's the best story tonight, was the geothermal energy gains a favor. And I got to grab that story and also put that over my pile, because that is a frighteningly wonderful thing. But the problem was it didn't get much traction out there. But it's a starting point, right? All right, here we go. The reality of it is I'm burnt out. I have a long day. And if I just keep pushing myself without recovering, I really got to learn to just try to take care of myself more. But we're in a different twilight zone than our ancestors. We got to fight for every species on the planet. We got no options. We got to fight, and we're fortunate to live in a time where we can talk to the planet. Right? We actually live in that moment, that little blip in history of humanity. And so to pass this opportunity is a mistake, right? And so those that can are trying, I hope, and perseverance is the key to it. You got to have faith. You got to have faith that there's a future, but we have to fight for it. And if you don't want to fight for the future, fight for revenge. How Japan's pulse event of radioactive fallout compromised the future of all species and humans. Well, that's basically what tonight. How the instead of has, because the polls are supposed to be a question, right? But I smurfed up because I had passed out for a couple of hours after I came in. I was exhausted, and when I woke up, I just sat up, fired up the computer, and started the show to get the preamble up. And the reason that my shows don't show up until typically a couple of hours before the show is because I don't know if I'm doing the show because I do my shows late at night, just before I go to bed. And when the show is over, I go to bed, right? It's typically midnight or close to it. So I start my shows at 10 p.m. at nighttime because it's nice and quiet and there's no traffic, there's no background noises, typically. And it's better audio for you folks, right? Let me see here. And if you made it this far, give us a thumbs up. What we got here? Ooh. Oh yeah, so I started off the show tonight with an edited version of Pink Hydrogen. That's where I chopped up his James Lewis's song. So I chopped out one little section I really, really like, and then I chopped up a little section of the singing, and I spliced them together, and it took a little while, and then that's what we played now at the beginning of the show tonight. I might do it every night because I really like it. I think it's just I got so many songs like that, it's insane. But I think that particular song, those pitches and everything else, it's a super song, right? It can go a long way. And because he's got an actual company, Corium Records, it very well might, and probably will, with a little bit of help. And so we got 29 votes in the poll. And we got 26 likes. So I'm going to play Pink Hydrogen. That's the song we started off with tonight. That's the song right there. Pink Hydrogen. That's at James Lewis's site. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. We're going to call it a night right here. I got Pink Hydrogen open up. And I can't keep up with all the nuclear news, but I'll get to it. So what I didn't cover tonight, I'll probably cover tomorrow night. If I don't cover tomorrow night, because I got a whole bunch of news stories, I'll cover the night after most likely, right? I do get to it eventually. A lot of times it'll be the same night. But because tonight we wanted just to do an introduction to nuclear, to Fukushima again, because the story is so important. The reason we're doing the news cycle is to keep the story alive, right? It's an incredible sacrifice to keep the story alive. And this is a technique we use. We hit the nuclear news cycle each day to bring in fresh people and introduce them to the horror of nuclear. And James has a neat way of doing it. He does it through music. And it just seems to work for him, right? So let's play that tonight. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show. Take care now.
They say it's clean, just in bright light, but beneath the gloss, there's nothing right, nothing right. They say it's safe, they say it's pure, nuclear reborn, that's the cure. Wrapped up tight in pastel tones, hide the flaws, mask the bones. Georgian horse wrapped in gloss. Look real close, there's danger there. They say it's safe, they say it's pure. Painted pink, they laugh and cheer. Trust us, nothing to fear. Fuel rods turn, the cycle spins. While they cash out, everyone grins. Sure, it's all safe here. But the cost they won't make clear. They say it's fake, they say it's pure. Painted pink, they laugh and cheer. Trust us, nothing to fear. Fuel rods turn, the cycle spins. While they cash out, everyone grins. Sure, it's all safe here. But the cost they won't make clear. So call it pink and mask the stain. Paint over waste, dismiss the pain. Keep the cycle, keep the game. Disguise the threat, shift the blame. Choosing tricks and faces bright. Tell us lies wrapped up in light. Only keep the game, shift the blame. It's painted pink, it's all a show. Pink hydrogen wrapped up need. Nuclear's tricked, disguised as clean. Painted bright for all to see. A scheme that leaves us lost as a ball in tall weeds. A Trojan gift, dressed in a lie. A polished mask for what's right. The future's here, they say it's bright, but hidden deep, it's not so light. They say it's bright, they say it's bright, say it's bright. Pink hydrogen wrapped up need. Nuclear's tricked, disguised as clean. Painted bright for all to see. A scheme that leaves us lost as a ball in tall weeds. They sell us dreams, they paint it bold, but what's hidden there is cold. A polished face, a crafted guise, pink hydrogen, their perfect lie. Their perfect lie. What's this, what's left inside? A future built on what they hide. And mask the stain. Paint over waste, dismiss the pain. Keep the cycle, keep the game. Disguise the threat, shift the blame. Hidden tricks and faces bright. Tell us lies wrapped up in light. The cycle, keep the game. Pink hydrogen wrapped up need. Nuclear's trick, disguised as clean. Painted bright for all to see. A scheme that leaves us lost as a ball in tall weeds. Pink hydrogen wrapped up need. Nuclear's trick, disguised as clean. Painted bright for all to see. A scheme that leaves us lost as a ball in tall weeds. They sell us the tape, the turf white. But the difference of gloss, there's nothing right. They sell us dreams, they paint it bold, but what's hidden there is cold. A polished face, a crafted guise, pink hydrogen, their perfect lie. Their perfect lie. The massless. What's left inside, a future built on what they hide. to see a scheme that leaves us lost as a ball in tall weeds. Pink hydrogen wrapped up neat, nuclear's trick disguised as clean. Painted bright for all to see, a scheme that leaves us lost as a ball in tall weeds. Pink hydrogen wrapped up neat, nuclear's trick disguised as clean. Painted bright for all to see, a scheme that leaves us lost as a ball in tall weeds. A Trojan gift, dressed in a lie, a polished mask for what's awry.